Hello, and thanks for joining us this week on another exciting edition of Victory Never Sleeps. We got a treat today. Joining us is a very good friend of mine and amazing folk builder, Mr. Jason Gallagher. Jason, thanks for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me. Freaking happy to be here.
Good. We're happy to have you. While we populate a few questions over here on the side, could you give folks that may not know you a little rundown of your experience becoming Asatru and how that led you to the Asatru Folk Assembly?
Okay. Well, it might take a minute.
You got all the time you need.
Okay. Well, I was never really raised real strong religious. My mom raised me Catholic. We didn't go to Sunday school or Sunday church a lot. I did go to CCD during the school year or whatever, and until about confirmation time, then I was no longer going. And it never felt right to me. It felt strange. It felt foreign to me. So I just kind of felt lost. So as time went on, I kind of wandered, kind of dabbled in different things, kind of Wicca for a minute, different things. Then I come across a book called by Ralph Bloom, I believe it was his name. Yeah, it was a book of runes. They call it the cookie cutter runes. They're made out of clay. They're these cheap little things. You get them at like Borders bookstore. It was kind of like tarot at the time. A friend of mine thought I'd be good with tarot and different things. So I had a pull towards it. So I started messing around with that. And then the more I did that, I felt a pull towards the gods. I started learning stories about them. This was about 2005. Before I was on the internet a lot. I wasn't just before Facebook. So I didn't really know it was a religion, that there was people practicing it. I just thought this was like mythology. And the more that I got into it, the more I felt this pull. And it was like I could hear the gods, like they were calling down the hallway, and I wanted to answer, but I had this stuff in the back of my head that I wasn't ready yet to. I didn't think I was going to go to hell with the Christian stuff, but there was a lot of stuff that I had to get past. So it took me another 5 years before I got past that. So that was about 2010. I was on Facebook and I was liking various Norse mythology and various pages, and I come across other people and I found out they call themselves heathens. And I never heard of that before, and I didn't realize that was an actual religion and people had been practicing this. And then, of course, like most people, come across Steve McDowell on YouTube, and then that was pretty much it. After that, I joined and I was brand new, and I just that was 2011. So I've been with the AFA since 2011, and I started folk building in 2016, and then I started doing the Kindred coordinator on 2018 around Yule time. So that's kind of how I came to Asatru and the AFA. And let me tell you, this place is family. This place is home. Asatru was the first thing that felt right to me. All the other things, when I tried, they just didn't click. But Asatru right away, even when I went to my first gathering with some less than savory people, I would never know, but I didn't know any better or whatever. And even then, it didn't feel weird. When we were calling on the gods, it didn't feel strange to me. So that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Well, good deal. I'm happy that your journey led you to us. Yeah, Jason is a huge asset to the AFA, and he has been for a long time. Matter of fact, Jason is, the cornerstone that we built Minnesota around, and now just a few years later, we have an amazing Hoff up there to Baldr. So no, it's been a huge asset having you on the team. So we got some questions over here on the side. Shay asks, having interest in your ancestors, are there any notable individuals or stories you have found in your family trees? Let's go ahead and have you start, Jason.
Only one. A lot of people, they have like Viking kings or different people that they trace it back to 1,000 years. Mine is only like the 30s, but it's a gangster, Jaime Weiss. He was a Polish gangster. That was his name that he chose. Wajkowski was a Polish name. Sorry, it took me a second. He grew up in Chicago, and he was actually killed by Al Capone's gang. That was the one guy that Al Capone feared, I guess. You can look him up. He's been portrayed on a lot of different gangster stuff or whatever. But my mom and my cousins and stuff would talk about this guy when I was younger, about this gangster guy in Chicago. So that's the only thing that I have formed that I'm related to.
I don't have anybody that's famous or notorious that I know about in my family tree. I think probably I say that of family tree that I know of. I have a sixth great grandfather, John Bond, that as a very young man fought as a captain in the American Revolution, and he was fighting for the Patriots in the Carolinas, and that was really brutal fighting there. That was a lot of fighting British paid Indian tribes and things that way. So it was real, tomahawks and musket butts, and it was pretty brutal. Know very little about that other than there was a battle of Rayburn Creek that he was a part of. But later in the War of 1812, he fought again, or, was in the service again as a colonel this time with some of his sons. And they took part in building the road from the coast all the way over to New Orleans. And along the way, they were instrumental in founding a part in, I guess, lower central Mississippi. And there's actually a county there that's named after him, Bond County. And it's right next to Stone County. And that's kind of where a lot of my family has been ever since about 1812. So I think that's the most noteworthy ancestor that I know that I have. Sarah asks, Jason, could you explain the AFA Kindred program and what the requirements are?
Yes, the AFA Kindred program is basically it's made up of 27 kindreds around the world, all over Midgard, which is pretty amazing. Basically, they are our local congregations. They're a bunch of dedicated members that have come together to form local communities and stuff. Many times they organize their own events. They do charitable works and stuff. What else would you like to know, I guess? I kind of battled on there for a minute.
Well, she asked, what are the requirements?
Oh, the requirements, that's what it was. The requirements are there's a minimum of 3 AFA members per kindred. They all have to be AFA members. And if a member leaves the AFA, they have to leave the kindred too. Each kindred donates a flag to each of the hops. So all the flags that you see hanging in the hop, those are donated from the kindreds. And I think that's about. I know there's other things. I'm getting kind of lost here, getting kind of with the camera, but
you're fine. No worries. Yeah, that's
you got my back. I think you can answer the parts.
Yeah, no, that's the main thing for kindred requirements. The kindreds are basically the local representation of the AFA in that community, and they're literally a flag for folks who are spread out away from the Hoffs to have a flag to rally behind. They've really been influential in making people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, even when our membership's very spread out. Every month, but certainly every year that goes by, that space between our members gets smaller and smaller. We've had a lot of growth lately, but those kindreds are really anchor points to help organize local AFA community. Sarah also asks, could you speak a little bit about your own awesome kindred, Jason?
The Northern Blood Kindred. Yes, I'm very proud of them. We just added a member recently. We are there are 6 of us. We started in October of 2016, right after the very first Fall Fest. We 5 of us came together and we decided that we wanted to create a family. And the Northern Blood, we're like many kindreds. We're very, very close-knit family. We watch out for each other. It's just like your own family that you're related to. They've been everything for me. They've been a great support system. I don't know what I'd do without the kindred. They are amazing people, and all the other kindreds that we have around. I am very, very grateful and thankful for all the work that they do. We have a lot of them that help support the Hoffs, that help come out and do the different events. Like when you come to like big national events or Fall Fest, you'll see the different Kindred people helping with the lunches, or they're helping with different events. So they're our major support system. I mean, we have dedicated members too that do a lot, but I like to think that they're like one of our big ground workers, like the Folkbuilders and the Gothar and stuff.
All right. Also from Sarah, Githya, Anna, and you were some of the first people to step into Baldershof. How did that feel? And Nick, could you throw up that picture, please?
It was amazing. If you hear it from Anna, we were giddy. We were like giddy, like giggity the whole way. It was like almost 2.5 hours out there for the Twin Cities, and each little town that we were going through, we were like, "Oh, is that it? Is that it?" So it was just excitement, and that coming in and trying to get in the door, and it took a few minutes to get in the door because the realtor, they had one of those lockbox things, and it was one from like 1970 with this weird turquoise. So finally we got in the door. We had seen pictures and stuff because the other folk builder that was here previously, he's the one that set it up and met with the realtor. So we knew what we were kind of in for. But when we walked in, it was just amazing because the realty of having a Hof finally, all the years of being in the backyard and finally having something for our area here, because we had talked about it forever and it had been kind of something that we were looking forward to, and just to finally feel it and taste it and see it and smell the mold and all that great stuff. But to know that, hey, this is the beginning. But I never thought, looking ahead, a year or two later, how much dedication and work it would take to get that place going. But like I've always said, I'm glad that we had to put all that work into it. If it was already pre-done, it would be the same, because a lot of us put our own energy into it. People came out and we did things, so we built it up to our specs. So I think all that extra hard work and extra pain in the arse helped out. So
yeah, the hard work really, really shows. Anybody who if any of you guys get the chance, Murdoch, Minnesota, you should check out Baldershof. It's beautiful. And it's not, it's stunningly beautiful, but it's not just that it's beautiful. It's powerful. When you walk in there, you can really feel it. And there's not really a way to describe that unless you go in there. But when you walk in that sanctuary, it's a real special thing. And I hope y'all get an opportunity to see that. So we got oh, thank you so much. Rowdy Dude just donated $50. We appreciate that a lot. He says, I have no question at the moment, just dropping some cash in the tip jar to show appreciation for all that I've learned from the streams. We are really glad that you're watching these and that you get something out of them. Thank you so much for your generosity. If anybody wants to donate or participate in Super Chat, because I'll always read the paid ones first, please join us over at Entropy. That's how you can do that. And any donations there are much, much appreciated. Also, please rest assured, I'm going to do my best to answer all of these questions before we get off tonight. So, you certainly don't have to give me a cent to get an answer. But if you do monetize it, it'll get answered first, and any tips are appreciated. We've got some more questions lined up here, but I kind of wanted to ask you, for the benefit of those, for the benefit of those listening, but also it's a really special and interesting and elevating and soul crushing, with all the ups and downs, process to go about trying to get a Hof somewhere, and watching, things you think would be amazing and then they fall through, and then maybe ones you don't expect turn out to be, beyond your wildest dreams. So it's a really interesting process. And, Jason mentioned how him and Anna were some of the first ones to get to check out the property. That's always hard for me, because I'll scout these things from across the country, and, I'll look at the pictures and I'll hope and I'll wish, but I always send these guys out here to look at the potential properties first. And I'm just sitting here chomping at the bit, checking my phone incessantly, waiting to, when are they going to send pictures? And it's always a really exciting thing. Can you tell folks, you pretty much took Minnesota from zero to having our third Hof. Can you describe that process for folks that, talk about wanting a Hof where they're at? What does it take to go from nothing to a Hof? And then what does the responsibility of having that Hof mean once you have it?
Well, it's pretty amazing going from nothing. You know, I was by myself. I was in the AFA for quite a few years, but it was probably 5 years before I even met another AFA member before I started folk building. So I was trying to get local people together, and it was frustrating, you know, trying to do an event and people wouldn't show up. So finally, after I became a folk builder, after you had the torch handed to you from Steve, you became the Alsherjargothi. I was one of the first folk builders to come on. And I remember I joke around that it wasn't until I got a fancy title that nobody wanted to come out and play with me. But it was after that, right before that, I was doing a thing down in Rochester, Minnesota with another AFA member. We called it Rochester True Folk. And I was bringing several AFA members down with me. And then it was a couple months later, I became a folk builder. So I was building a foundation with those people. There was a lot of people that were starting to become new members of Minnesota. People were getting really hungry because there was nothing here. You know, there was a couple of uni type things going on and stuff, but there was nothing good, solid, folkish, nothing AFA here. So when we started doing things, it was from the ground up. It was brand new. We had never done study groups. There had never been bloats. There had never been this event. So we went from doing nothing to having all these different events. And all of a sudden, it went from the bro show to families to little kids. I remember my kindred sister, Jessica Hansen, I remember her going, when are you going to have kids? And I'm like, no, we're going to have kids. It just takes a minute. There are going to be kids. We do have members, but, you know, she come to events and it's just guys and whatever. And finally, the more and more, and it like snowballs, you know, that's why I always take pictures, like you said from day one. Pictures tell 1,000 words. I can sit there and talk about bloat all day long, but if I take a picture and I'm showing the families and I'm showing little kids up on shoulders of parents while they're in bloat and they're doing LGs and they're into it, that draws people. I mean, it literally snowballs. You get a couple of families, before you know it, we had like 30 or 40 people. I mean, I can remember having like almost 50 people in the house here. I remember coming inside from the house and I remember going, what is that? It was so loud. It was the kids. They were running around screaming. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. You know, and it was just amazing to go from not being able to do anything to having people hungry, wanting to come out. When's the next event? What are we going to do? So we went and did all that. We started doing more and more stuff. And as time went on, we grew and got bigger here in Minnesota. So as that went on, that was when I think you guys had decided that hop number 2, because we were originally supposed to be hop number 2. I remember being at Midsummer 2018 at Odin's Hop, and you and Mark McCall came up to me and you go, yeah, I think hop number 2 is probably going to be in Minnesota. So as you remember, we looked at 5 different properties in Minnesota from like February 2019 to August 2019. And it was just, we were getting blocked. Different people were finding out who we were, different things. And we needed a straw buyer or something. So we finally had a place down in New Ulm, and that place was moldier than the Baldr's Hop was when we came in there. I mean, there was water droplets, everything. So we came real close to my kindred brother and sister, Ryan and Jessica Hansen. They had put their house up, used their mortgage to get that property. So they had an inspector come in. Well, the inspector came in and he shook his head, and their bank was like, no, we're not going to give you the money for this. So that we came that close. And then after that, we were having a hard time finding. I remember the folk builder said, hey, we need to come up with some money real quick or find something before it goes to somewhere else. Well, then it ended up going down to down south, somebody else and whatever. There's more to the story than that. But basically, so it went from being, so we kind of thought it was lost. We were kind of, not going to lie, I was a little disappointed there for a minute. But it was like 2 months, 3 months after we got Thor's Hop, boom, there was, during the pandemic, during the freaking lockdown where most people can't go to church or go anywhere, we got 2 hops. I mean, like my brother Gothi, Jason Port says, now it's 4. He used to say 3 hops don't lie. You know what I mean? Yeah, people can sit there and say what they want about us, but when you go out and you do great things, until you actually, I've only been to Baldr's Hop and Odin's Hop, but until you go to a hop, like being at Baldr's Hop all the time, is such a beautiful thing. The more in there, just being able to have a place to do things and to see the kids. I mean, you're tripping over little kids, and there's little kids zinging out of you, and it is such a beautiful thing to know that one day they are going to be future Alsherjargothi key holders, managers of the hop, folk builders, Gothar, that God pulled that Gothi Rob Stam made out there that will stand for 100 years or more. You know, all that stuff. We hope. We've always said the AFA is just going to keep snowballing from that member to that member to that member. So, and now to go on to the responsibility part, because yeah, when we were thinking about getting a hop, we didn't realize too about how much really goes into it. You know, and I'm the furthest away for leadership right now. I'm almost 2.5 hours away. So I'm lucky that we have Brandy, Nate, and Ashley, Jesse, and all them that are like an hour and a half away to get out there. Because like if a tree falls down or plumbing issues, if you need to have somebody right there, you need to have that support system like you talked about. If you don't have the kindreds and the dedicated members, that hop ain't going to continue, because you can get that hop, but if you don't have the people that put in the time, the energy to keep it running and to do all the work to maintain it. And believe me, as you know, it takes a lot to maintain and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of people don't know what all goes into it, and you guys do an amazing job. There's a lot of work that goes into it. You guys do amazing with it. Some people don't know kind of the story of how that happened. Like you said, the plan was for Baldr's Hof, or for our second Hof, which would have been, which is Thor's Hof, to have gone in there. And there's so much that goes into establishing these Hofs. I believe very, very strongly, you know, there's a lot of prayer and a lot of approaching the gods with it. And I believe that the gods and that weird plays an effect in there. You know, we want to make sure that we're really busting our hump to do everything we can. I don't want anything to be held up by me not doing enough. But, you know, we tried so hard to get one in Minnesota. We must have looked at 5, 6 different places. We tried so hard, nothing was working. The second we opened it up and said, you know, maybe it's not where it's supposed to be, let's look down in the Carolinas, Thorshof came right to us at an amazing deal. And we got that. But then right on the tail of that, we found the deal of the century on Baldr's Hof. And sure enough, we had that Hof in Minnesota very, very quickly. It was meant to be, and it was meant to be dedicated to Baldr. And that worked out really cool.
Yeah, I think we're more of a Baldr's Hof here. I really do think that, you know, versus the Thor's Hof. I mean, it would have worked good, but I think Baldr's Hof up here.
So Sarah asks, you've been an amazing folk builder. What is your approach to bringing people home?
Just being welcoming. That was one thing early on, was trying to welcome people in, because I know what it's like to be on the outside, to show up somewhere where people have already been established, you know, like people have been together for months. So you come to an event and people have known each other for years, and their kids are running around there like cousins, and you're this outsider, and it's very hard if people don't talk to you. So my approach when I first started folk building and hosting events was to make sure people felt welcome. I mean, I would like go running out the door. I would see somebody pulling up. I remember somebody telling me that the first time I met them, we were doing a thing at a German restaurant. He's like, Jason damn near tripped over the table, did a flip, and came running up the door when he see me come walking in. And that's what I like to hear. I like to hear people say, hey, I was at your event, and that I felt so welcome. I felt like I was at home. It wasn't scary. So we want a friendly environment, you know, a homey environment, because we are family. A lot of us are actually related. So yep.
Those of you guys that may not know Jason, Jason is the most hospitable. He's probably the most hospitable guy in the AFA. Everybody's always blown away by it. Every time I'm in that part of the country, Jason comes, picks me up at the airport at all hours of the night, you know, lets me crash at his house and takes really good care of me. And he does that to all our folk that travel through there. Jason specifically, and our Minnesota folk in general, are some of the most hospitable people in the AFA. And I hope you give them an opportunity to offer you some hospitality if you can. King of Cheese asks, a question to start off. What advice do the both of you have for trying to bring folk home? If they're confused or even resistant to the idea, it can make it difficult to do. Jason?
I start talking about the ancestors and our customs and stuff, a lot of times that hooks people. You talk about the ancestors and your connection and stuff. Sometimes if you come out with like the gods right away, that can be a little intimidating, especially if you got some weird Christian in the background. It can be tough. So I think sometimes if there's something that they feel familiar with, something that they can connect with right away, a lot of times that's a good thing, I think.
I think first, what Jason was saying a second ago is absolutely true. Be friendly and hospitable and just be a nice human being. I say it a lot, but because it's the right answer, be a living billboard for what Asatru should be. Live nobly, be a good person, be a kind person, be a caring person, be somebody who's useful and helpful to your society, look good. And then when people ask, hey, what's your secret? Tell them that it's the AFA and it's the relationship with your gods. That is a huge, huge thing to bring people in. And you want to look awesome and amazing, but you also want to look normal and not scary or deranged or, you want to look good and look like the kind of person somebody wants to be around, and also like the kind of person somebody wants to bring their family around. And the more that we have that, the more the members come in. That's the best piece of advice I have. Don't try to sell them. Don't try to force them to believe in the gods. You can't intellectually convince people of the gods. That's not how it works. I mean, maybe you can, but in my experience, I haven't found that to be the most effective. What I found to be the most effective is to be an example, to share my experience with the gods with other people, and to ask them, at most when I'm asking them, I'm not demanding that they all of a sudden change their life or believe everything I believe, but I'm asking them to participate with an open mind and an open heart. If they just go before a picture on their wall of one of their ancestors with an open mind and an open heart, and they say a prayer, something that small may make the biggest difference in their life. More than that, if they, have an altar and do that, or if they get together with a group of people and participate in bloat and they enter that circle with an open mind and an open heart and they give of themselves and try, amazing things happen. So I think that's probably what I would say on that. Rachel says, does everyone in the AFA need to wear a Mjolnir, or are there other pendants/symbols that you can wear for other gods like Freya? Well, Rachel, no, everyone doesn't need to wear a Mjolnir, but the symbolism of Mjolnir has gone much beyond just Thor himself. It's a symbol of our faith. It's been the symbol of our faith since the beginning of modern Asatru. And during the conversion period, it was absolutely the symbol of our faith. When our people had to define, are you Christian or are you Asatru? The hammer was that symbol. So there's a power to it. The power is in communication and recognition. People recognize what it means. If you have a different symbol for a different god instead of a Mjolnir, that doesn't clearly convey to everyone what your message is. They don't associate that right off the bat with Asatru. We're just getting to a day and an age where wearing a hammer does symbolize to a lot of people. They recognize that means you're Asatru. I've had that reaction from a lot of folks that I would have never thought knew what Asatru was. But if you were to wear, something different, they'd miss the point. As an AFA member, you can wear whatever you like, whatever you feel is the best way to do it, but it's not going to have the same recognition that Mjolnir would have. But what some people do, if they have a particular relationship with a specific one of our gods that's not Thor, they'll wear their Mjolnir and then an additional piece of jewelry that symbolizes that god they have a special relationship with. I know that a lot of devotees of Freya that you mentioned will wear a little pin, or I've seen it as a pendant of the the lady with the mead horn, and I forget what piece of what artifact that's from, but it's a very common thing that people who want to represent Freya will have. So yeah, there's a lot of options, but the Mjolnir itself gets the point across. Hey, I'm Asatru, and I'm showing the world that I'm Asatru. King of Cheese asks, and another question: how are you both? Well, I hope. How are you doing, Jason?
Pretty good. Actually, doing really awesome. Very happy to be here tonight, and this is an exciting time to be alive. We have 4 hops, and more are coming. More and more of our folk are coming home every day, so I'm doing freaking great.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm doing fantastic. I look forward to these every week. I love it. Currently, the Reno Bowl where I live is the worst air quality in the country because we're getting all the fire over in California has deposited all its smoke here. So having a little bit of trouble breathing out there today, but no, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing great as well. Kenny asks, what do Matt and Jason do for work, like regular 9-to-5s? For myself, this is what I do. I do the AFA full time. From when I wake up to when I go to bed, I'm fully devoted to making this AFA as successful as we possibly can make it for our folk, for our gods, and for our future. And that's what I do now full time. Before that, I did a lot of work as a bouncer. I was a bouncer for a little over 10 years. I tried to find jobs to where I had the time and the flexibility to where I could do AFA things and I could contribute to the AFA. So I was a bouncer for quite a while. Before that, I worked with severely emotionally disturbed children. I did that for a time. But yeah, it would some other odds and ends here and there, but that's what I got. Jason, tell folks what you do for a living.
I do this too. It ain't quite as noble as you. I don't quite put in the time that you do, but I do this full time. I like to think that I'm always thinking about the AFA too. You wake up in the middle of the night, there it is. Yeah, I live with chronic pain and a few other things, so I had to quit working and stuff. I used to work at a retail store back in the day, do different things or whatever, but some things happened and I had to move home with my dad or whatever. He took me in. So this is kind of what I do. And when one door closes, another door opens. And now I'm with the AFA all the time, constantly do this. So this is a pretty awesome thing. I mean, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. So
good deal. James asks, Jason, will Sassy be making a guest appearance?
Probably not.
So Nick, throw up the next best thing.
Who's the cat's ass? Sassafras.
There we go. If you guys ever get anywhere near Minnesota, you need to make a special detour to go see Sass because she is a really cool dog. I look forward to seeing her every time I go. Sarah asks, is the Folkish Family Freyfaxy in August of 2019 that you hosted one of your favorite AFA memories?
Well, it was, but you were there, so now it's no, I'm just kidding. I had to give you a little shit, Sarah. Actually, that was a great event. That was the first time that I finally met you. I had met James before at the German restaurant. I think he had come to an event before that too. But yeah, that was the first time that I finally got to meet you in person, and you got to meet Anna and Jessica and stuff. And it was a great day. That is one of my favorite ones. I'm not gonna lie, Yule is probably my favorite out of all the events of the year and whatever. But Freyfaxy is one of my favorites too. Great event.
Adolf asks, at what age can a child or teenager join himself? So the official answer is once that child is 18 years old and an adult, then they can join as a member. But if they're younger than that and their parents want to bring them to something and encourage them to be involved, we would absolutely welcome that. But to be a member in their own right, they do need to be 18 years old. James asks, Jason, didn't you receive a great honor from our Alsherjargothi in the form of a medal or a ring or both for something special? And what was it for?
Both, actually. Give me a second here. I don't know if I can. There's the medal right there. That's not the best. But first that I got was 2017 Folkbuilder Excellence Award. Is that how it's pronounced, Matt?
Yeah, the Folk Building Excellence Award.
I received that one in 2018 midsummer. I received that for the previous year for building Minnesota and all the great things that we did here. And then at the Baldr Top dedication, and Matt, you're going to have to talk about this more, but the AFA Ring of Honor. Can you explain the stone that is in there and what it's all about? Because I don't have the piece of paper with me.
You're lot on the piece of paper, but the AFA Honor Ring has got it's got a lot involved with it. It's a really special one. There's only There's only 8 of those that have been distributed so far, and those are for people that have gone above and beyond in making our AFA what it is. Yeah, the stone that's in there is dark blue like the AFA, and it's in the center of the trihorns in that circle on the face of it, and that symbolizes the AFA being the center of our lives, the center that everything else revolves around. It's got 4 runes on it, as well as the wolf's angle, so that we know that we're in a struggle for our people and a struggle for tradition. We've got Ansus because of the inspiration of the gods, Sawilo for victory, Othala for our celebration of our heritage and our tradition, and Rhytho, our priestly rune of right action at the right times. But it's a special ring, and Jason is a very special guy.
I am very honored for both of them. And like I said, I can just go on and on, but I'm very happy and very appreciative to be part of this team and to be part of the AFA, our church.
Well, we appreciate having you. You've made a massive impact, and you continue to do so. Christine says, Jason, you have been an AFA member for a long time and have attended many AFA events. What would you say your most memorable event you have hosted or attended, and why?
Oh, that would be tough. There are so many, but I'll just pick a random one. I was out at Odenshof 3 different times, 2017, 2018, and 2020. And just being out there is just magical in itself. If people have never been there, you need to get out there. The area it's at and the hop itself is just a beautiful place. And yeah, I kind of got lost. Sorry.
No, you're fine. What was your favorite event and why?
Sorry, I got nervous there for a second. Probably being out there at Odenshof was probably my favorite event. Meeting the different people, that part of the country. That's the best part about going to the national events like that, is meeting people that you normally would not get to see. So I got to meet a lot of those folk out there, a lot of those California people, because as we know, that was the flagship. I mean, that's where it all started. And whatever. So I can remember being an AFA member years ago and seeing The Voice when it was called The Voice, and seeing these people like the Mark McLeods and the different people, and thinking I'll never be able to get out there, and just seeing. So I looked up to these people. So to finally meet these people, it was just amazing to see these people that had been like Stephen McNally and stuff, and Sheila. I didn't get to meet them until 2018, but just to finally meet the heroes and people that kind of inspire you and stuff. So that, but also the very first office, I just got to throw that in there, was the Wotan Boat. People talk about your Wotan Boat, but that's still the very first one that you did at Dark, because I remember just because, you know, you're Matt, like right now, you're like, hi, how you doing? But all of a sudden, Warren, you know, you could feel the energy coming up. It was just like, so it was like going from talking to you all day with this laid back guy. And then when you went into ritual and you pulled this, you could just feel it. You felt like Warren was there. And so that was probably the most memorable. And that was my first real AFA big blow too. So I'd have to say that probably would have to be it. Finally getting to meet you and Mandy, and no top the tater, but just me.
You know, that was a really, really special event. I remember being at that first Fall Fest, and that was in the house that you built. You know, that was in Minnesota. That was all you're doing as far as making that happen and making that family be there. And it was really neat to see that go for, I mean, now we've seen that culminate in a Hoff there, but up to that time, that was just such a special thing to see us go from nothing to having one of our flagship events there. That initial success of that was really special. And that was the first real event I went to as the Alsherjargothi. I became the Alsherjargothi at midsummer of that year, but going to that Fall Fest was the first time I was kind of on my own as the Alsherjargothi of the AFA, and it was a really special event for me too. King of Cheese asks, "Oh, speaking of Hoffs, what happens when we run out of gods and goddesses to dedicate Hoffs to? Do we dedicate to heroes, other Aryan gods, etc.?" You know, I don't think that's a problem. As far as just naming, I think that we have infinite amounts of possibilities that way. As far as dedications to particular gods and goddesses, there's no rule saying that, you know, Odin only gets one Hoff, or that, you know, Thor is confined to one space. I'm sure that we'll have many Hoffs dedicated to each of our gods and goddesses. Cool. And we may have Hoffs named after other things besides. So we'll see. It'll be exciting to get there, and I think we're going to get there faster than we ever would have dreamed. Rowdy Dude, maybe this is a FAQ. How does prayer work in Asatru and different from Christianity? So prayer is prayer. I think that, okay, so the prayer in a Christian sense is very broad. There's some sects of Christianity where prayer is very regimented, or you have like memorized prayers that you do on certain occasions. Asatru is not really like that, except for we do have the Sigdrifa prayer. That's the only recorded historical instance of prayer that we have the words for. But in Asatru, prayer is done like most people, I think, of faith do. You come before, you know, if you have the luxury, or if you're in that space, you can come before your altar at your home or at a Hoff and open your heart and your soul to our gods or to your ancestors and speak to them. Typically in Asatru, that's accompanied by some kind of offering. Maybe it's just a shot or a stick of incense or something. Very often it involves that. Altar work very often involves lighting a candle. I could come up with a bunch of fancy reasons, but I think that fire's cool and was kind of always something that's captivated the imagination of man since the very beginning. But yeah, prayer works by communicating to the gods. I would say that the tone is slightly different than Christianity. Our gods, like in Asatru, you need to be pious and reverent when you're speaking with our gods, obviously, but it's also really important to have pride in your accomplishments. Whereas in Christianity, all the glory goes to God. In Asatru, we want our gods to be proud of us. Yes, give them the glory and worship that they deserve, but also be proud of yourself and your accomplishments. Offer that up on the altar as something for our gods to be proud of. Share your successes. And that's what I'd say. But I think that for somebody coming in that's not used to it, it's very, very similar to how you would pray in any sincere faith that you have. I hope that gets at the question. Brandy, Jason Gallagher, the heart and soul of Baldershoff District. Nick made this heard loud and proud. Antonio, my question is, has anybody like African Americans or Asian Americans has ever asked Asatru before? If so, what was the response from them? So I'm trying to understand the question because there's a couple of key words missing there. I'm going to do my best with what I think you're asking. If you're asking, has any Blacks or Asians asked to be members of the AFA, I'm just trying to think for a second. We have had, I think, one Black gentleman asked to join, and he asked a couple of times, and we've told him no every time. And we've been very straightforward with him, and he's been very polite and appreciated that every time. I don't believe we've had any Asians try to join the AFA. So I hope that gets at your question, but that happens way less often than I think the folks in the Universalist team would like to pretend that happens. That's something that happens very, very infrequently. Sierra, do we allow currently incarcerated folks to become members? How about those freshly out and those who have been out for a while and have changed their outlook on life? So we do not accept membership from folks that are currently incarcerated. A lot of reasons for that, but we want to enter into this relationship when somebody's in the place to make that choice for that to be what their life is about. We've seen a lot of occasions where people who are incarcerated view the world one way, and then as soon as they're back out in society and their options change, their priorities change, and it doesn't really last. So we want to give people the chance to have that consistency in their life to where they can make an informed choice that this is something they want to be a part of and want to live with. People who are fresh out, we like to, ask some questions and get to know those people, but we would love those people as soon as they're out to reach out and become involved with us. We do like to wait. Those folks are welcome to come out. They're welcome to join, and we'd love to have them. It takes a little bit of while to gain the trust that this is a change in their life and that they're going to stay on the outside. I think certainly some cautions do there. And folks that have been out for a while and changed their life, that's great. Love to have them. Some of our best members and some great members of leadership have had that experience in their life, unfortunately. And they've turned out to be some of our very best people. So, we hope that answers that. But the only restriction there is we don't accept new members that are applying while they're currently incarcerated. Nick asks, he doesn't ask, he posts for Finn, who asks, does the AFA believe in more than just gods? For example, it said people in Iceland believe in elves, also known as Hulda folk or hidden people. Are these something? Yes, they are something. No, by believing in our gods, we believe in a lot of unseen forces, including land spirits or hidden folk, or however you want to conceptualize them. There's not a massive focus on that as the AFA a lot, but we do try to interact with the land spirits, especially in and around our hofs. And when we do ritual, that's always something that I do when I start off, is I invite them to witness what we do and to be there with us, or I share appreciation if we've shared their space for an amount of time. So yeah, I think that there's many things and many entities in this world that we can't see on a regular basis that exist and are very relevant to what we do in life. Okay, I think this is all one question. Okay, never mind. I think that's all right. That's a follow-up to the question that I had. These questions sometimes come a little bit disjointed. I apologize if I mangle anybody's question. Sierra asks, what disqualifies potential applicants or those who are current members from becoming / staying a member? So this list is not exhaustive, but in general, if you are sincerely pursuing a belief in Asatru and you are a heterosexual white person with a history that doesn't include sexual violence, then you have the qualifications to apply to become an AFA member. Now, once you're a member, what keeps you there, it depends. In general, we don't like to throw away members. People go through different things in their life, and we're a church. We want to be there for them and help them to succeed. And so when they're going through a rough patch, or they're acting a little off, we'd love to help them get things straightened out. We certainly don't want to throw folks away. The things that usually result in somebody being asked to leave are if their behavior becomes consistently beyond the pale to where it takes away from everyone else's experience. Certain amount of disruption, and this may be different from some other faiths like Christianity that are very individual. Asatru is very much a group thing and a group expression. And when one person is consistently a distraction and detrimental to the spiritual well-being of other people in the group, if that can't be fixed, then we tend to part ways with those people and hope that they come back when they're able to be a contributing member of the group. Another thing that people may not be aware of, you're not allowed to be in the AFA if you are in a interracial relationship. That goes against our core values. I'm sure there are other things, like I said, that's not exhaustive, but those are typical things that cause someone not to be eligible for membership. Do you vet new members? Asks Kenny. Yes, we do. It's not super intensive. We run a background check on them. We try to check on their social media to make sure they share in our core values. And we run the background check to make sure that, to the best of our knowledge, they're safe to have around our families. We got kids around. We care about the safety of our families, and we don't want to let bad elements around that we think pose a danger to them. And that's something we do take very seriously. And we also try to have a conversation and make sure on our core values that we're on the same page on, several things that are really important to all of us. Nathan, Jason, what has been the biggest challenge becoming the epitome of a folk builder and more in your time with the AFA?
Challenge? Trying to get certain people moving. has been my biggest challenge over the years. I have people that are literally like 10 minutes away that just would rather be a Facebook heathen or sit on Facebook. You know, we got all these people that would rather be online than go out and be part of something. And it gets me that people would not want that. Why would you not want to go out? There are these people that they just want to, oh, I'm a heathen on this and that. And they like to rant about it. But when it comes time to go out and do great things and build great things and do things for our folk and for our gods, they don't want to do it. So I've had a hard time getting certain people. That's been one of my big challenges and stuff. But other than that, I haven't had a lot of issues. Like all the years that we've done events in Minnesota, I've never had any issues when we were out in a park or somewhere where people bugged us or anything. So I've been very lucky that way and stuff. You know, I've always tried to create a wholesome environment and not feed the trolls. If there's somebody that tries to say something or start something, I shut it down. I don't give it any weight to that water or nothing. So I think that is a major thing. But yeah, there are just some people that just you can't get going. And I've noticed too, some people it takes time. Like me, it took me years before I came to Asatru. I knew it was there, but I had to get over certain things. So sometimes there are people, they'll come back years later that I was working on, and folk builders know that a lot, I'm sure. But yeah, in Minnesota, different areas are different. But yeah, here we have a big uni problem. There's a kind of a fruit cup problem. Oops, did I say that? Oops. So yeah.
Lawrence donates 10 Canadian dollars to us once again. Thank you so much, Lawrence. We always appreciate your being here and your contributions. Good evening, Matt, and nice to meet you, Jason. You strike me as an old school, salt of the earth kind of fellow, and I wish there were more authentic men like you around. Bless your heart, and thanks for all you do for the AFA. You mentioned, so something you said earlier, Jason, on that last question was trying to get people out, and why wouldn't they want to come out and be part of something? And that's a phenomenon that we have to overcome with a lot of people, and I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons. We live in a time where, especially I feel younger white men, but I think younger white people in general feel very isolated, very socially isolated. I think some of that has to do with just the social conditions of the time we live in. Some of it has to do with, all of the lockdowns when people were reacting to their understanding of COVID-19. But even before that, technology, which, I love technology and I think it's a great thing, but that has, the way that's been used has been damaging on people's social skills. And I think it's easier to sit in mom's basement and idealize about how the world should be than it is to go out there and risk being let down, or risk being embarrassed, or risk failure, or find out that you're not as smart as maybe you think you are. Or what's worse, what we've seen with these Hoffs, people are scared to succeed. They'll talk all day about their hopes and their dreams and what they want. And all of a sudden, when it starts to come true, it's terrifying to them. And fear is something that cripples our folk these days. And it's something that we're working really hard to overcome, and that I'd love to see our people be free from. But that's a big challenge that all of us have faced since I've been involved in Alsatru, certainly. Winston asks, is the AFA open to Alsatru-themed fiction, short stories, etc.? Sure. I don't know what that would be or what that would look like. I mean, I have discerning tastes. I'm open to good fiction. I'm less open to bad fiction. That would all really depend, but I love creative things like that. I think that we need more creative things and artwork, which, writing a story is a form of artwork. Storytelling is great. So no, I think that's great. Kay May asks, do you like boiled peanuts, Matt? I love boiled peanuts, and it has been years and years since I've had boiled peanuts. but I don't like spicy boiled peanuts. So it's hard for me to find non-spicy boiled peanuts. I mean, it's impossible for me out here in Nevada to find boiled peanuts in general. I mentioned earlier about my ancestor. My grandparents, who did a lot of raising me, are from that area that I told you that he settled. So they're from Wiggins, Mississippi. And my mom was actually born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And so my grandpa, when I was a kid, his relatives down there would always send him up just bags and bags of these boiled peanuts every year. And I miss those. Those are delicious. You got me hungry. GC, I'd love for us to build a hall, call it Folks Hall or similar, a place near to a Hof where traveling members can stay so that they would not have to incur the expense of lodging. It's an interesting idea. And it's something that, trust me, we are thinking about those things on the back end. It's challenging when people come to visit and there's no place to stay right around the Hofs. Our current Hof situation is to where, no one lives, none of our members live right in that town to, open their doors for guests. So every time we have somebody come to the Hof that wants to stay for a while, that's from out of town, it's always a challenge for them to have a place to stay. And I hope that changes as we get more of our people living closer to the Hofs. I think the idea of having, supplemental buildings like that where people can stay is always a really nice one. I know folks often spend the night at Odenshof. Odenshof is kind of an exception because of where it's located. But I think the idea of space for people to stay when they come visit Hofs is something you're going to see more develop on in the coming months and years. Brandy, Jason, thank you. There would be no Baldershof without your dedication. Remember that time you sat in the cold as the heaters were replaced?
Yes, I do. That was on 2 days worth. It wasn't too bad because there was the two guys that put the furnace in, and they were entertaining. So that kept me busy, and I did a few things, and I did a little bit of work around there, some stuff up. So I kept busy, but yeah, that was interesting to look at it now where we have a furnace in there and you're sitting in there and you can see your breath. And I remember when it was getting close to winter, and Minnesota winters are nasty, especially out where the Hof is. It's not where I live. It's wide open out there. It's the prairie. So they get hit really hard out there and whatever. So
would a Braggy's Hof ever be an idea, like a music Hof dedicated to Braggy? Braggy's Hof is absolutely more than an idea. Braggy's Hof is going to be our 7th Hof. So when we get to Hof number 7, it will be dedicated to Braggy. And I really hope that we can encourage music and storytelling and those kind of vocal arts there. I would love to see that, and I'd love to see that happen. And I think that just would go hand in hand with that Hof and with, a more structured and a more prominent worship of Braggy. Shovelhead, I've been doing some research since last week, and I think Christ and Odin are one in the same. I think that you're mistaken. I'm not sure what in your research has led you to believe that, other than both were crucified in a way. I think that the fundamental character of the two is very, very different. And I think that a fair reading of the source material would indicate that the fundamental character of those two persons is extremely different. Finn, even though it's called Asatru, is it trying to work with more gods than just the Aesir? I've heard people saying that they don't identify as Asatru because they work with more gods than the Aesir. That's an Interesting question. I'm curious what other gods that they're working with to where they're not consider themselves loyal to the Aesir. One thing that comes up a lot that I think is a linguistic problem more than anything else is people who are concerned about the term Asatru because, but what about the Vanir? And I think they misunderstand the Vanir and Aesir linguistics. When the War of the Gods was resolved, the gods that we worship, that we know, that we talk about, that these people likely refer to, that are Vanic deities, are absorbed into the Aesir and become Aesir. And you find that in our source material a lot. When they list the Aesir, in the poem that we take the ordering that we're doing our Hofs from, the Gylfaginning, it lists the Aesir, and that's why we do our Hofs in the order that it is. And on that list, are Frey and our Njord, gods that are frequently associated with the Vanir. When he lists the Aesir, or the female, the goddesses, Freya is on that list, also known as the Vanadis, the Disir of the Vanir. So if that's the question, no, those gods are part of the Aesir, and linguistically that term overlapped into those as well. And that might be what you're asking, and I hope so. If not, feel free to ask a follow-up question on that. Stephen asks, where is Jason's superhero suit?
That's a good. Oh, hey. I was told that I cannot dress up like that at official events. I was nicely told that you're in leadership and you can't behave like a horse's ass, which I am, and I'd love to do. I'd love to run around, and if you know me, if you've ever met me, I'm just wacko. You do something or say something funny, I'll never let that go. Every time I see you, you're gonna hear that same thing. So yeah, I like to have a little bit of fun, and I like to run around and yeah. That's not always very approved, but maybe someday they will bend a little bit and let me kind of rock a little cape right here, maybe a little, I don't know, maybe I don't know. We'll see.
All right. All right. Well,
dear.
Kenny asks, what do you guys think about the Southern Poverty Law Center label? I did some research and found a research paper saying they were politically motivated. No surprise there. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a joke. I think it's a joke and not even worth anything. Not even worth looking at or giving any power to. Yeah, I don't even, that's as far as I can go with that one. I think it's bullshit.
Southern Poverty Law Center, it's unfortunate because a lot of people are confused and believe that it's some kind of authoritative source. Some people think that it's, some kind of a government list. It's not. It's a private organization that is engaged in high-level name calling. And there's no more technical authority to a label that they give, than me calling somebody a duty head. It's just done in a much more media exaggerated way. It's unfortunate that it does have a real impact and it scares a lot of people. And in order for their business model to succeed, they need to scare people. The last thing they want is for our world to be a better place, or for there to be more peace and harmony amongst people, because if there is, those people are out of a job. So it's self-sustaining for them to inflate ideas and numbers to scare people. And very often their labels just aren't based in any truth. If you read the article that they have about us and you read it carefully, they don't accuse us of saying or doing anything hateful. You would think a hate group would certainly say or do hateful things, But according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, they don't mention one thing that we've done that's hateful. What they do in the article is say confusing things. They will name individuals that have done something hateful, and they'll throw those names in a sentence with the AFA while not saying that we're connected, certainly implying that we are to other people. And all those things just aren't true. We had a reporter reach out to the SPLC when they were doing the story for us, asking, where's the dirt? What do these people do that's hateful? And they were, really hoping that they would get some dirt on us. The SPLC told this reporter, according to the reporter, that there were 3 reasons that the AFA is labeled a hate group by them. We have an archaic view of gender. I don't know what that means to them other than we believe that, well, it's not that we believe, gender is determined by your biology. That's a fact of mammalian existence since the dawn of time. And that just is. And everyone agreed that it just was until about 2-3 years ago, when all of a sudden that fundamental changed somehow in the public consciousness. They believe, we believe, number 2, that there is a biological component to race. Well, how silly. Of course there's a biologic component to race. That's why people's children look like them. That's silly. Every doctor, every anthropologist, everyone engaged in forensics knows that race is a thing, and every other group of people, except for some very mentally disturbed white people, understand that race is a thing. In fact, it's such a common thing, you can't escape hearing about it on the news for 2 seconds. You're just not allowed to talk about it in a positive way if you happen to be a white person, unfortunately. And the third one is that the AFA spreads white nationalist propaganda about a white genocide in South Africa. If you listen to the news about South Africa and you look into it yourself in any way, white farmers are being targeted because they're white farmers, and they're being murdered, they're being raped, and they're being depossessed of their land by the United Nations definitions of genocide. That is a genocide, and because it's explicitly aimed at white people, it's a white genocide. We could use different words, but it's a thing. You can look it up, and it's happening. And our hateful acts to that are feeding poor people that live in the camps for the folks that are displaced. And the AFA, for those of you who don't know, once a quarter, we spend all quarter generating donations. And then once a quarter, we pay those out to the South Africa Family Relief Project in a lump sum for them to buy groceries and to feed the white farmers over there that live in some of the squatter camps. So that's something we do. And thank you, Nick. I was just going to ask for that. If you'd like to contribute to that, Nick just threw up that link for you guys. But that's what we think of the SPLC's thing. Unfortunately, they've got infinite pockets, and there's not much we can do to get them to treat us fairly or to stop lying about us. We found in real life, when people meet us, they know very quickly that what the SPLC says is wrong. And hopefully, as the SPLC continues to misrepresent people and organizations, people will put less and less stock in what they have to say. Sarah, for $3, thank you, Sarah, for the $3, asks, Jason, I hear you're a fan of karaoke. What do you like to sing?
Actually, I'm not a fan of karaoke. I don't think I've maybe done it once or twice when I've had a little bit of adult beverages in me or whatever. There are a couple other members that can get a little carried away. Like Joel Eastman, he does an awesome King Diamond. I actually have a recording of him when we were out in North Dakota a few years ago at this Yule event, where I was in my cabin, like, I don't know, like half a block away, and you can hear him. at midnight doing his King Diamond. If you've never heard King Diamond before, he's a falsetto voice. So basically, it sounds like he has car batteries hooked up to his nerds. So his voice is like really, really high. And yeah, he's an acquired taste. He was in a band called Merciful Fate, and quite a few of our members, I'm realizing, are hardcore fans or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, I could, if I did have a little alcohol in me, I would be known to maybe in the right environment, get on a microphone, and I would do more breakdancing than singing. I'm more of a breakdancer. I get my cardboard out and do the 80s. That's where I'm at, but there's a video of that somewhere too, where I got a superhero breakdancing.
You heard it here, folks. Antonio asks, another question is, has anyone who has mixed race background ever questioned themselves of who they are to you when they want to join the AFA? Yes, that has happened. Yeah, that's happened. And unfortunately, sorry those people are in that situation and have that that kind of internal questioning that they have to do. Mixed race people are not allowed to join the Asatru Folk Assembly because we're an ethnic faith and we're built around the things we all have in common instead of our differences. One of the things, though, we're not out to run genetic tests on everybody for purity. People know if they're white folks or not. And the standard is if you want to be in the AFA, that if you look white and you identify yourself as white and we identify you as white, that's good enough. So it's not some kind of a skull measurement standard by any means. But no, people that are half something else or something like that, no, we have had those people try to join, and we've politely told them that they need to find their spiritual home somewhere else. Jason, please share with us your love for creating things by hand for ritual and for gifts.
I enjoy carving mold ears a lot. That's one of the things I like to do. I find a lot of solace in carving. Especially, I live with some extreme pain quite a bit, and I find when you're out there and you're carving, you kind of get into the zone, and it's pretty cathartic too. You kind of leave what you're dealing with, and plus, what I also like too is creating things to offer up into the ritual fire. I like to make different things, whether it's runes or I've made god idols, and then I like to offer them up into the fire when we have events. And I also like to Gallagher while we're doing it. Those are my favorite things. But I've always found it really fascinating about how our ancestors, they would offer things into the fire, or they would ritually kill their swords and they would throw it into a bog or into a lake, or Germanic tribes, when they would take the enemy after a battle, they would take their goods and other things and throw it into the bogs and offer it up to the gods. So I find that very powerful, and there's something pretty neat about that, and to be able to do something like that. And also the idea behind the Molnirs, I came up with that for the kids. I wanted to have something to give to all our little kids. So I try to make them for kids, and I started making them for the members and stuff. But that's one of my favorite things. And currently I'm working on a big project right now for Baldr's house. That will be done here for this weekend. So that's all I can say. It's top secret. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right. Brendan asks, what is your advice for someone who is still Christian, but has been feeling the call of our gods for some time now? In today's world, the ways of our ancestors is the only thing that makes sense. What's your advice, Jason?
I've dealt with new applicants and stuff that were just came from Christianity, and I've also had people that they're not 100% sure. They think that they want to become Asatru, but they just haven't felt the spiritual part yet. So I've told people the best way, I think, is to come out to an event, to actually come out to, if you can, come to a hop, to be around people, to experience a ritual, to be there and be in that circle, and to be there when you're calling upon the gods and the different things. I think that is a good thing. And also reading up about our stuff too. For me, reading about our ancestors, about the different things that we actually did that were the Christians took over and stuff, to learn that, like the Christmas tree and things like that. So I find that helps sometimes too.
There's lots of different things that would be advice in that situation, but I think the question itself says something. I don't know. If they're asking the question, how Christian are they still? One of our values, one of our core values, one of our noble virtues is truth. And that starts with being honest with yourself. It is scary. It can be absolutely terrifying. It can be existentially terrifying if you come from a place of being a devout Christian at one point in your life, and then you choose to forsake that and go this very different route to come home to your ancestral gods. That can be very scary, and I freely admit that. It can also be very socially scary if you've built friendships there, if your family are involved in the Christian church. For you to leave that is a scary prospect. But I think you need to be honest with yourself. Is the reason that you're staying because you're scared of venturing out and trying something different? And if it is, and you acknowledge that fear is what's keeping you Christian, then you should choose to make the courageous choice and come home to our gods. I know that's 1,000 times easier said than it is done, but it's liberating once it's done. And that's absolutely something that I went through back in 2001. It's something many of us have gone through, and you got a ton of us over here that want to welcome you in and help you get situated. My biggest advice for somebody who's sitting on the fence, get off the fence and make a choice. Make the courageous choice. And what's really scary today won't be a year from now. So I would encourage that person to find the courage within themselves to make that choice and to come home to our gods, especially once they already know it's what they should do. If fear's the only thing holding you back, you owe it to yourself, to your gods, and to your ancestors, and to your descendants to overcome that fear. Michael asks, any thoughts on the Wotan statue in Munich? I heard it was out there before World War I, so this is why the Tula Society was given leeway in Germany when Hitler was in power. Yeah, it's a cool statue, and I think it's neat that it was there. I know that Munich has a long history of pagan traditions that lasted into a really long process into the Christian era, and certainly there was a lot of Germanic revival things that went on during that time. I can't speak to 1930s politics about it, but I think the statue is really cool, and I do think that statue dates back from that Romantic period. That was the same period pre-World War I where Meister Guido von List was, reintroducing our folk to our gods and to the runes, and so much of that was developing there, not just in Germany, but in Austria and all around Central Europe. So no, I think it's really neat, and I think that Munich is a special place. I'd love to go see that someday. Rachel asks, how important is meditation in Asatru? Jason, what do you think?
I think it is important, and in fact, it's something that I need to get into more. I have been thinking about it a lot, but I think it's very powerful, and it is an important thing. I know a lot of the different Gothar do it on a daily practice and stuff, and the connection or whatever. What are your thoughts?
So I think that meditation means different things to different people. There's a lot of things that are meditative acts. that recentering yourself spiritually is really important, I think. There's a lot of people, when they think about meditation, they think about sitting in a lotus pose in silence, freeing their mind and doing that. And that's fantastic. If you can do that, that's great. And if it helps you, then by all means. One of the things I've found with myself, my mind is constantly going, and the idea of emptying my mind or shutting it off is next to impossible for me. That's always been a struggle. My mind constantly going about all these things, I think, has proved a benefit to the AFA, but personally, it's difficult sometimes. So one of the things that's really helpful to me when I do meditations is something with a mantra to it or with a Gallagher. That allows that very repetitive intonation is repetitive, familiar enough, and you don't have to think about it to continue doing it after you've done it for a certain amount of time. And there comes a point in your rune Gallagher where you're no longer telling your mouth to make the noise. Your mouth is just going, and you're not telling it to do it. You're just stuck on that autopilot. And, biologists out there, I'm not asking this to be taken literally, but that part of yourself that you want to be outside your body and to do things when you meditate is separated from the part of yourself that's controlling your speech at that point. And I hope this makes sense to folks, but you're almost outside of yourself, hearing the rise and fall of the intonation of the rune that you're Gallagering, but your mind is lifted to that meditative place. And that really helps me in meditating. Something that I also think is a meditative act, because it gets your mind off of whatever daily stresses that you have and focuses it on repetitive action that's repetitive physical action in a way that you need to be very present for. I find martial arts to be meditative. I do Japanese jiu-jitsu, Danzen-ryu jiu-jitsu, and I find that to be very meditative, or it certainly can be, depending on how intense the training is that day. King of Cheese asks, how animist is the AFA in general? If I recall, some weapons in old Aryan stories were given names and said to have desires and personalities. Does that survive today? So I don't know where the boundaries in the spectrum of animism is. We do in the AFA believe that objects or places can carry power. You can imbue them with power. We don't think that every rock and tree is its own spirit, like a true animist would. But we do think that rocks and trees sometimes are places that are special to beings that are powerful, that either inhabit that space or that those places and those objects serve as a way of connecting with those spirits. You talk about weapons having their own life force to them in a way, with their own desires and their own personalities. And that's true. That's kind of it's a very specialized thing. But yes, there's a thing, and we still do believe in that today, although a weapon like that is such a distant concept for most of our people, in a way to where you actually interact with it, and it's a essential part of who you are. But it's, you can do things to magically charge something with a bit of its own spiritual gravitas. You imbue it with a certain amount of life force, and this is all kind of esoteric to talk about. But yes, there are objects that retain energy. And, you know, if that's passed down for a time, or if that's present in ritual for a time, it becomes powerful in and of itself. And so we do believe that's a thing. Phantasm. Odin is and always will be my god, but I've recently dabbled in trying to venerate some Celtic gods because it's such a significant portion of my bloodline. Is this acceptable as an Asatru? It's an interesting question. The gods of the Aryan peoples share a common root and commonality. I think that it would work better and be more holistic to worship the gods of our folk under the Norse Germanic conception of them, with that name and that personality and that understanding. I think that would be much more congruent and more appropriate. And I think that you wouldn't be missing out on anything that our cultural brothers are practicing in any sort of a Celtic faith. It gets tricky because I don't think there's a one-for-one exchange of who's who when you compare Aryan pantheons. I think there absolutely is sometimes, but I think that can get a little bit trickier. But I think that if you worship the Aesir, you will give worship to all the powers that need to be worshipped by our folk. And I think that that's what I would advise do in that way. Tracy asks, question, does it make a man less masculine if they connect more with the Aesir? No, I don't think so. I think what would make him less masculine depends on how he acts. For him to connect with, that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean a lot of different things, but I don't think connecting with your female ancestors makes you less masculine. I don't think having a good relationship with your grandmother takes away from your manliness. And I think that shouldn't be concerning to someone. I think, you know, an example is when you come to someone for counseling, in spiritual counseling or otherwise. There's some things and some people, there's some men who are much more comfortable talking to another man about certain problems, be they health problems, be they emotional problems, be they counseling or spiritual advice. But there's other guys that are, depending on their circumstances, the exact opposite. They function much better talking to a woman about their problems. They can feel like they're not in a competition with them. They can feel much more at ease. They can get a loving and compassionate energy that they may not get the same way from a man who's counseling them. So that's all a matter of circumstance and personality, but I don't think that takes away from masculinity at all. Timmy asks, Jason, how does it feel being part of the proud, the Folkbuilder of the Year gang?
Timmy, big cracker. Yeah. You're part of the cool kids now. It is pretty awesome that the more and more I think about that, it just blew me away when I was given that award. I am just, like I said, I'm so honored to have found people, because like many of us, I was lost. I was wandering, spiritually lost. And when you finally do come home and you find the people, and over these years, like many of us, we built relationships, going to events, and a lot of you, like you, Matt, are like close family now, and a lot of us are related. But going and doing all that, it's been a really awesome thing, and it's like an extended family. So being part of this, and to be honest, those are the only awards I've ever won in my life. I've never been into sports much, and so I don't have any trophies. I don't have nothing. So it meant even more to me, but it was a total surprise, because like most of us, I didn't get into this for me, for my name, to make big things. I did this to help build up our people, the AFA, our area. So it was a selfless thing. So to me, it's beautiful. It really is. It's something that I don't think that caught me off guard. I think totally. So yeah, sorry, battling.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Sarah asks, Matt, I've noticed that you never wear the same suit combination to events, and over the years, you've gotten braver in your choice of colors. Would you care to comment on that? Sure. So first, trying to think of where to start on it. When I started out, I used to dress like a slob, and I'd go to stuff when my first couple of AFA events until I had that conversation with Brad that I talked about before, to where the realization, if I would dress nicely for a special occasion, for a wedding, for a funeral, for a family reunion, for, something that way, why would I not dress when I'm approaching our gods? And, if I would dress a certain way, if I was going to a Christian church, or when I was a Jehovah's Witness, if I went to the Kingdom Hall, why are our gods not worthy of that same level of piety and caring for yourself? So I started trying to up my dressing game at that point. And it's absolutely about reverence. It's about piety, but something happens when you dress good and you look good, you feel good. And so it's become important to me to really try to do that and step it up over time. And that's built a lot of self-confidence. And as the self-confidence builds, and as I feel proud of myself and good when I'm dressed a certain way, I think that's where some of the more bold fashion choices come in, because, you can't pull it off if you're dressed loud, but you're shying away and looking at the floor and you don't have the self-confidence. So I think, it synergizes. Dressing good, looking good makes you feel good, makes you hold yourself a certain way, which makes you look better. And the better that is, the more self-confident you are, the more fun it is to dress up and get excited about the stuff you're going to wear. And especially being the Alsherjargothi now, it's my job. I'm literally the spokesperson for the AFA. I represent the AFA before the gods, and I represent the gods before our folk. It's an absolute must that I try really hard to look my best and look a way that represents our folk and our gods the best that I can. So thank you for noticing. And I enjoy dressing up and finding things that I think look good, look dignified. And yeah, I like doing that a lot. Got a question from... Cool. Another question or a statement from Lawrence with another 10 Canadian dollars. Thank you again, Lawrence. To any Christians watching who are feeling the call to explore Asatru, I respectfully encourage you to research the origins of Judeo-Christianity. You will be surprised at what you discover. The work of Acharya S., aka Dr. D.M. Murdoch, helped me drop Christianity forever, but there are many others. So I think that's definitely some good advice. The more you research and the more you look into things, the more clear some things become. We've got 4 more questions. If you guys got questions out there or things you want to hear me and Jason talk about, please go ahead and throw those in there. We'll stick around as long as we've got questions. Been on for about an hour and a half, and as of right now, we got 4 more questions in the lineup. Kenny, I know it's been brought up already in episodes. What is the AFA doing about bringing bluegrass music into the faith? I'm down for that. The AFA is doing nothing because I don't have any bluegrass skills. I have nothing to contribute to that other than I'd love to see it happen, and I'd love to push forward. As that happens, I'd love to encourage and broadcast that kind of stuff. So if you've got skills in that regard, please talk to some of our folks that do, and let's get something together. It's always been a dream of mine. I would love some Asatru bluegrass. I think that would be amazing.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think? You like your music, Jason?
Yeah, I tend to like the heavier music, but yes, I think that would be cool, especially in a folk setting. Asatru bluegrass would be cool because it's pretty awesome just when a member picks up a guitar and sings or plays the drums. So anything like that would be awesome.
Now out here at Odenshoff, we have, I think they did something last month, but I was at Fall Fest, hopefully here this weekend when I go up there for Winter Finding. Both folks will be around. We have one member that plays a banjo and another member that plays a guitar pretty well. And I'd love to see how that works out there. Finn, do AFA members do or have considered learning Glima, Scandinavian martial arts / wrestling, which I heard is partly based on Viking combat? We've got a lot of members, so I don't think I could confidently say that no one does, but I don't know of anybody that does that. It's tricky. I know a lot of folks, especially, in our circles, want to do something martial and want to do some form of martial arts, but are hesitant to do a culturally Asian martial art. And unfortunately, European martial arts schools, that just wasn't a thing for a very long time. So attempting to reconstruct some very old European fighting styles, I think that's probably really cool for historical interest. And I'm not going to say that has no worth or value, but the Asian martial arts systems have been developed and in use in very effective ways for a really long time. So if your point is to do something that's effective for handling yourself in a self-defense or a fight situation in real life, I think that those traditions have more practicality to you right now than some of the newly resurrected supposed ancient European martial arts schools. But I don't know anybody who does do Glima, so I'm not sure. I can't really speak educatedly on it. Jason, do you know anybody who does Glima?
I don't know anybody, but I've known a few people that were interested and have brought it up and brought up some links to stuff and read it, but I haven't actually seen people physically practicing it or organizing events for it. But that would be something you need to see.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. Certainly, I think it'd be fun. Corey, when you look at society, do you ever think that Loki is behind all of the chaos, or at least enjoying it? Or is he still tied up with venom being dripped on him? So one thing, and we've explained this on past episodes, and I know it's a difficult concept, but we believe very, very much that mythic time and linear or historical time are two very different things. So mythic time is very often cyclical and overlapping. And I know that's hard to understand if it's not something that you're used to, but we believe that the events in our myth cycle have happened, will happen, and are happening simultaneously. So yes, it's hard to say. I think that Loki, being a force of chaos like he is, I'm sure that he does find chaos to be pleasing to him. And I think that he finds, in a lot of ways, detriment of our folk to be pleasing to him. I honestly have to say that I haven't given much thought to things that Loki likes or doesn't like, because we stand in opposition to Loki and his. I don't think that he is behind all of the chaos or responsible for the chaos. I think there's plenty of malevolent forces causing chaos and the vast majority of those aren't spiritual entities. I think chaos is a natural state that exists if you don't stay beyond it and stay ahead of it. That's why I think entropy is one of the biggest problems that our gods and our folk try to overcome. I think entropy is that force that drags order down into chaos perpetually, unless we're striving and trying to succeed, trying to move forward, trying to move upward. As soon as we stop, we get pulled down and we get pulled back. And so I think that there's a lot going on that makes the world chaotic. And I don't think it's all, some grand Loki plan. I don't think it quite works like that. Our understanding of the world isn't quite as binary as, our gods and then Loki being, our version of the devil. It's not quite that simple. Freyr asks, how does the AFA view Freya and Frigga being the same? I'm a Frigga devotee. Through my practice, I think I've found that Freya is for short-term relationships and Frigga is long-term. Your thoughts? I don't think that Freya and Frigga are the same. I think that they have very different energy on those kind of things. Some of this is fundamentally how the AFA views our gods compared to perhaps how some other folks do. The people that I've heard that think that Frigga and Freya are the same tend to do that from a linguistic or a scholarly background because some ancient texts merge the two or some linguistic variant. And that's not how I know our gods and goddesses. That's helpful and that gives us a place to start. But building relationships with our gods and goddesses through worship over time and through being in that gift cycle, you get to interact with them in a personal way. They're not a math problem to solve with enough, nerd study. You're going to somehow unravel the mystery. It's something that you build a relationship through the exchange of gifts and the exchange of energy. I think that Freya tends to be more so there's a concept in Aryan mythos in general of horse goddesses and of cow goddesses, and meaning the horse goddess is more wild and untamed and represents the unmarried women and women in a more raw elemental context, often a more sexual context. And the cow goddesses are goddesses that are more about the home and the hearth and the raising of children and women in relationships as wife, as mother. And I think you see Freya and Frigga as exemplars of this dichotomy. But I don't think that those things don't overlap. And I don't believe that our gods or our goddesses are one-dimensional. Thor's not just strong. He's other stuff too. Freya's not just sex and magic. She's other things as well. So I don't view our gods as archetypes, and I don't view our gods as the result of linguistics. I view our gods as actual spirit persons. And one thing that, I will say, I understand that if we go back, there are undoubtedly, if we take all of the continental sources, all of the British Isles sources, all of the Scandinavian sources, I'm certain that there are some deities and some personages that overlap or that are a confusion of one or the other. But when practicing religion piously, I would much rather err on the side of worshiping two different aspects of a God as two separate things than mistakenly assuming that they're the same God and only worshiping one and excluding the other. At the end of the day, if one of our gods happens to be worshiped under two different names in two different ways, they still get that worship and that relationship still exists. If I make the mistake and only worship the one and not the other, if I'm wrong, one of our gods doesn't get that worship that they're entitled to and doesn't get that love and worship from their folk. And I would never want that to happen. I think it would be impious. So that's why we tend to err on the side of always assuming that they're distinct and different, even when sometimes that may or may not be the case. So a reminder to plug Winter Nights. Winter Nights coming up in 1 month. Nick, could you throw up the Winter Nights information and dates? Anybody who can make it to Winter Nights in Ohio this year for the first time. It's going to be at a new place. We're going to see a lot of new faces we haven't seen before. Jason, how do we get you out to Winter Nights sometime?
I would love to go. That's my thing. It's just it's right after Fall Fest, and Fall Fest always takes me 2 or 3 weeks to recover. And this year, it's been a month, and I'm still. So I would like to let's say next year. Let's just stay that.
All right, you guys heard it here, folks. Remind Jason of that next year, because we would love to have him out to Winter Nights.
Because I've always wanted to go. That's been one of my to-go-to events.
So Winter Nights, for those that may not know, that's our the second national event we started doing for the longest time. Well, okay, I take that back. The AFA originally was doing Winter Nights in the Motherlode was the event, the big AFA event. And that happened for a few years before they did Midsummer in the Sierras. And Midsummer in the Sierras was always our big national event for a number of years after that. Well, when the AFA really expanded, we've had members around the world and across the country forever, but when we had those in significant numbers to where we really had a strong presence on the East Coast, we started doing Winter Nights in 2012, I'm guessing. I think 2011. I could be wrong on that. Regardless, it's the second one that we did. Now we have several every year. We have many national events, but this was kind of, our second oldest national event that we've held. So it's always special, and it develops its own personality to it over the years. If you guys are interested in attending that, if you're a member, get with your Folkbuilder and they'll get you all set up. If you're not a member and you want to attend and check it out and see what it's about, also reach out to one of the Folkbuilders in the area and see about being a guest and coming and seeing what we're all about. We'd love to see you guys there. Winston, Jason, being from Minnesota, are you a BFG fan or aware of their music?
BFG. Who would that be? I'm having. Can he elaborate on that?
I don't know. Winston, can you elaborate on that? I can't help. This is a Minnesota
thing. I'm going to rain for it. I would have to think. I'm sure it's something very obvious. Yeah. But offhand, I can't think of what that would be. So I would have to say I don't know. But yeah, from Minnesota. I'm born and raised. Top the tater and all that good stuff. Yep.
So Nick also reminds me to plug Feast of the Einherjar in Oklahoma this year. Nick, can you throw up the dates and registration information for that? This will be the second year the AFA is going all out for Feast of the Einherjar event. It's a really special time. It's a really good event. It's a time that we can honor our warriors and we can honor our veterans. So it's really neat that way. It was a very nice event last year. This is something that Folkbuilders Nathan Erlinson and Melissa Mills are putting on. looking forward to it. I'm going to be out there. I believe Steve and Sheila plan on being out there as well. We'd love to see you guys. If y'all are anywhere close, see if you can make that happen. If you guys aren't close, we'd still love to see you make it happen. Okay, so Sarah wants to make a note that Glima will apparently be a part of Frere's Harvest Fest in Idaho. So there you go. If you got questions you want to know about or see or participate in some Glima, Frere's Harvest Fest, which will feature a feast. So there you go. Yeah, so no, Nick's spelling it two different ways too. Don't put that on me. Those of you who listen to this later, on my screen, it's spelled two different ways. Anyways, it's going to be fantastic. That's a really nice thing up in Idaho if you can make it. I would love to be there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to attend or not this year, but that's nice. And it's in a very beautiful part of the country with some of our great members up there that would love to see you. Matthew Gordon, any tips on dealing with depression and or feeling lost? I know Odin himself battled with depression. Jason, you have any advice on depression or feeling lost?
Lean on your folk and your gods. That is what helps. Talking to your folk, your people that are your family. I mean, having your gods and your ancestors to lean on is a good thing. But having actual physical people to talk to, and a lot of people have experienced similar things. So for me, when I'm feeling down or I'm having issues or something, just having somebody else to talk to. I mean, yeah, it is great having all those ancestors backing you and all that and having your gods and stuff. But at the end of the day, having a physical person, knowing that they're there and to talk to unload to, or to have them unload onto you, that really helps, especially people that have PTSD. I know that's a big thing, just to have somebody listen, just to be there.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, okay, a couple of things. First, don't feel alone in a number of senses. But I can tell you, as somebody who's been a Gothi for a lot of years, for a decade or more now. Yeah, a decade now, this year, I believe. We get a lot of folks that have experienced depression in their life. That skyrocketed during all of the reaction to COVID-19 and the isolation from that. It's especially bad amongst our young people. You're not alone. And what Jason said, reach out to your folk. And I get this as much as anybody else. When you're depressed, you want to feel lazy. You don't want to leave your house. You don't want to see anybody. You just want to curl up in a ball by yourself. That is the worst thing you can do. At the least, get out of your house, get out, go for a walk in your neighborhood, or even better, if you can, out in the woods. Do that once a day. Make sure you're eating good. Make sure you're getting protein in. Make sure you're getting your vitamin D in. That's also very helpful, especially if it has any kind of a seasonal aspect to it. And get with your friends. Get with your AFA family. Go to things. Participate with things. Be around people. That's such a huge asset. And it's always very hard for me in my position to watch when people go through hard times and they pull away from their folk. That's the precise time they need to pull closer. Don't be alone. And if you're a member of the AFA, you don't ever have to be alone. You've always got people out here that care about you. So that's what I'd say. And awesome. Thank you for putting that link up there, Nick. Kenny, does the AFA have a decent amount of members in Nevada? Is there a chapter here? What are the chances of making one? Funny you should ask. I'm currently talking to you from Reno, Nevada. I don't know what part of the state you're in. We do have members down in the Vegas area. We have members out towards Elko. We have a member in Lovelock. And and we have a number of members here in Reno. Every month I have a dinner here that I host at my house for our Northern Nevada members, or any Nevada members that can make it. Last time we had a guy up here for Hot August Nights from down in the Vegas area, and it was great to get a chance to meet him and spend some time with him. But yeah, no, Nevada's a good place to be, Asatru, especially if you're in Northern Nevada. That means you're very close, driving distance to going over to Odenshoff. It's about 2.5 hours for me, and people very often are able to share a ride or do whatever we need to help make that happen too. So yeah, please reach out. Okay, so something else. Nick's good at reminding me on plugging stuff. Next big project up for the AFA is Phrasehof. Phrasehof will be our 5th Hof. Phrasehof will almost 100% likely be in Ohio. The only other contender to that is maybe far western Pennsylvania, but it's really looking like it's going to be in Ohio. We got a couple of things we need to get done to get there, a couple of economic things we got to hit, so we really do need donations to make that a reality. Your generosity has been what has allowed us to get the first 4 Hofs that we have in such quick succession. Your continued generosity was what will make Phrasehof a dream that will come true. And we're looking very forward to that. We're very excited about it. We've got amazing people in that part of the country, and that's just primed for success. So help us make Phrasehof happen. What are the AFA's perspectives on Adumbla, and do they take it literally? So as a general rule in our myths, the AFA, our myths are absolutely truth. They're not literal truth, they're mythic truth. They tell us true things, but they tell us true things in a poetic way, in a way that we can understand and wrap our mind around. We don't, with Adumbla, for example, we don't believe there's just a giant floating cow that gives birth to life, but we do believe in what that image conveys to us about that source of life force and how that relates and has similarities to the cow and all of the life force that we've always gotten as Aryan people from cows. Our myths are a poetic way of explaining truth. Our myths about Thor, Thor's not a huge buff guy that's got a red beard. The image of a huge buff guy with a red beard tells us something of the power and the might and the manliness of Thor. It speaks of Thor, but to think that our gods and spirit beings are contained and confined to a physical form in that way is limiting in a way that I don't think our ancestors felt, and that we certainly don't feel today. So we do believe that our myths are absolutely truth, but they're not meant to be taken literally. That was never their point, and that wasn't the point of most indigenous faiths. That's kind of a unique phenomenon amongst Abrahamic faiths. Rowdy Dude, is there a way to honor all the gods at once as far as worship and ritual goes? Absolutely. Jason, what do you think on how you can honor all the gods at once during ritual?
Focusing on all of them, saying their names, doing different things. I've seen events where they rattle off different gods' names, or they do different things for attributes towards the gods or different things. I don't know. What are your thoughts? But as far as I got it.
Of course you can. Yeah, of course you can. The most simplest is saying, "Hail the Aesir," or "Hail the gods." mention them during ritual, mention them by name, mention them collectively. But I absolutely think you can do that. Most of our bloats are dedicated to one particular god, sometimes two gods that are connected in some powerful way. But something I very commonly do during my Yule bloat is it's for all the gods. When I do a Yule bloat, it's a celebration between the Aesir and our folk, and we celebrate all together as one big family, and we go around and hail the different gods and goddesses of our folk and share that celebration with all of them. I think that's absolutely something you can do. And I would encourage you to do so. If you can't pick or choose, or if you're new and you're not that familiar, you can just bloat to the Aesir as a whole. And I think that would be taken very well. So back to Winston's Minnesota band question. Bound for Glory is who he's asking about. What do you think about Bound for Glory? Are you a fan?
I have heard of them. Yes. That's just I've always been more of a metal guy and whatever, so I haven't been much into the punk or the RAC or what do they call it type music. I guess I would be up for maybe listening to them, but I'm more into the metal. I'm more into the Cookie Monster, as you say, Matt. And thanks a lot now, because every time I hear Cookie Monster. But yeah, no, I know people that know them, and I've heard great things about them, but that's just a different type of thing that I just have not gotten into. So that's all I got for that. But thanks for answering. I wanted to guess that.
Fair enough. So I got one last thing to plug here, and then we're about fresh out of questions. So if you guys have anything you want to get answered, please go ahead and put it out there for us. We'd be happy to get mine and Jason's take on it. Go ahead and get those out. In the meantime, I'm going to encourage you guys to go to your different Hoff sites. So recently, Folkbuilder Jessica Lambert has put a lot of love and a lot of time into making some really beautiful Hoff sites. The AFA has recently gotten so big that we've separated our districts out to Hoff districts. So we have 4 Hoffs. So at present, there's 4 districts that the AFA has divided up into. Because putting out a newsletter for the entire AFA was getting to where it was taking hundreds of pages. So we've got the Odenshoff district centered around Odenshoff, but with a lot of those surrounding Western states. We got Thorshoff over there on the East Coast. Pretty much everything north of Georgia along that coast is in the Thorshoff district, and some states inland as well. We've got Baldershoff district, kind of that northern half of the middle of the country there, also including some Canadian provinces. And we've got our newest Hoff district, incorporating most of the deep south there, and over into Texas in the Nordhoff district. 4 sites for our 4 Hoffs. If you look, Nick's got the addresses up. If you go to them, one of the best things about it is looking at the events. First, it's got contact information for the folk builders nearest you. It's very clear when you look on those sites what district you're in if you look at the states. It's got a list of folk builders in Gothar you can contact, but it's also got a really cool event section. And I'm really proud of the event section. It's very useful, but it's also really nice to see all of the different events that we have going on, on any given weekend for the Asatru Folk Assembly. There's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a very good chance there's stuff going on near you. So I would encourage you guys to reach out, to get involved, and to pay attention to that event section so you can be part of what's going on in your area. I see a random comment over on the side. I love me some tacos, but chicken fried steak is superior. Chicken fried steak is fantastic. I love me some chicken fried steak.
That's good. Good stuff.
All right. Well, that's all the questions we got tonight. We've been talking at you guys for 2 hours here. I want to thank our guests. Thank you so much for being here, Jason. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have to have you on again. You guys got to get out and meet this guy. You got to get up to Minnesota and see Baldershoff. They're a package deal, and they're both amazing attractions. Go see them. Until next time, hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.